Welcome to my tutorial about masking fluid. I get a ton of questions all the time about this really useful tool, and I've got a couple tips for you in this video on how I use mine. I usually use a Winsor & Newton masking fluid and something called a ruling pen, which I'm going to cover here in this video. This here is a ruling pen. This little tool is super cheap, but has saved my paint brushes and my peace of mind. It is adjustable, so you can make the line width bigger or smaller. And this is my masking fluid. I prefer the colored ones. You can get completely clear. This one is yellow. Today I'm actually going to be working on a coloring page from my upcoming coloring book that I have printed on Bristol board. Normally I work in a watercolor paper by Arches, which is a 300 GSM paper, but the Bristol will do just fine. It's 260. You want to make sure that you use at least a 230 gram paper when you're using masking fluid. You can just dunk the ruling pen in, and you see that little piece in there, that is your masking fluid ready to be used. Sometimes when you go to start this, the flow isn't quite right, so you can adjust right there on your nibs and try again. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries. Sometimes I even need to redunk my pen. And there are a few different ways that you can hold this pen. I don't know if there's any specific right way to hold it, but you can get a varying stroke with this by holding it the way that I'm holding it here. Sometimes I'll actually turn the pen on its side to create sort of a bigger swoop with it to cover larger areas. You can get really, really fine details with your masking fluid by using this pen. It's best to just experiment and see what works best for you. Here I am turning the pen sideways again so that I can get just a little more surface area there. You want to work kind of quickly with this stuff because it does dry in kind of a gummy state, and if you wait too long in between applications when you're trying to cover large areas, you can get kind of a stringy, weird effect, and that's kind of annoying. I should also note that if you have applied your masking fluid, you notice that you've got maybe just a little piece that you missed, you can always reapply more. I've never had any problems with either putting this on too thinly or too thick. I've heard tales of people tearing their paper. I luckily have not had that problem yet with either the Arches paper or this Canson Bristol that I was using. The Canson Bristol is actually what I started on years ago. I just recently, as of last year, switched to the Arches paper, which is wonderful, wonderful paper. If you can afford it, if you're ready to invest in it, then I really highly recommend it. But this Bristol will do just fine. I'm going to speed things up a little bit here as I go through applying my masking fluid. Normally I'm a lot more careful when applying this, but I wanted to make sure that I could give everybody a pretty thorough example of what it's like to use this on a piece that I'm doing. See, there's some of those little sticky bits if you don't go quickly enough. And on the mane here, I do turn the pen sideways again just to cover that area a little quicker, and on the jawline as well of Lady Wendigo. And after use or in between uses, you're going to want to clean this off. It does get pretty sticky. A paper towel will do just fine, but it does come off with some hot water and another paper towel as well. This comes clean pretty easily this time. And you want to check this before you begin painting. It'll have sort of a tacky feeling to it. You'll know when it's dry. And once it's dry, it is safe to ink over, it is safe to paint over. You can really saturate your paper around it. It is not going to peel up, it's not going to come off. I've even actually attached some of that blue painter's tape to it if I'm trying to cover a large area and block that out. And I've never had a problem with it. It's actually really fun to tear off the masking fluid as well as the tape together. This stuff was a real game changer for me last year when I first discovered it. And I get so many people asking, what is that stuff that you're peeling up off of your paintings? It is always this. I thought it would be kind of fun to include the coloring of Lady Wendigo in this tutorial too, because I really wanted to make sure that everybody could see just exactly my process here. Obviously, this is what I do. Somebody else's use of this tool or these tools might be a little different, but I work my canvases, or my paper, I guess you could say, very, very wet. I've always really loved watercolors because of how, I guess, uncontrollable they can be sometimes, which is why I tend to probably oversaturate my papers. I should also note, if you are an acrylic artist and you're trying to use this masking fluid on a canvas, you are going to get very frustrated. I've tried it a couple of times. Just take my word for it, don't do it. I love doing all of these little snowflaked apples on her. I'm so excited to release these coloring pages, excuse me, later on this year. I am currently putting together a coloring book series that I'm hoping I can release sometime around Christmas time. And now, after you've applied your paint, you want to make sure that you dry this very thoroughly. Here I am using my blow dryer, and you can see that it is much flatter now. And now for the best part, you can either peel this up with an extra little piece of that masking fluid or with tweezers. I do a combination of both. You just put that little blob right on there and pull this up, and there you go. Make sure to peel slowly. I have never done this hastily before, so I have to assume that if you do so, then yes, you probably will tear your paper, but I make sure to go nice and slow. Because one, it's just a lot of fun, and two, usually the name of the game for me is being as careful as possible. You can see underneath all of this masking fluid, there are those nice crispy white areas where we intend to preserve that for other colors. And there you have it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this very informational, and if you have any other questions, post them in the comment section.